What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com and ArrowheadAddict.com, and I am finally joined by Hydra again to do another Kansas City Chiefs live post-game show. It's our first of the year, given that it's week one, but Hydra, it's been a while since we've done one of these, so how have you been, first of all?
I'm good, man. Life's been good. Back in college now, so that's always rough, but been having a good time, so.
Well, you were able to catch the game, obviously, right?
Of course.
So that's good. I mean, Chiefs football is officially back. We've waited so long. It's been long anticipated. And, I said in my pregame with Michael Darcy yesterday from KC Sports Report that this had the makings of a week one blowout. I just didn't like the vibes surrounding the Cardinals team. Thought they had a very strange offseason. I'm not a believer in the Kyler Murray, Cliff Kingsbury combo. And this was just a slaughter fest from the very beginning. Chiefs win 44-21, and really most of the Cardinals' points came in garbage time anyway. It wasn't really close from the very start. The Kansas City Chiefs kind of controlled this game. They scored on their very first drive, and the offense was firing on all cylinders. As you can see on the bottom of the screen, Patrick Mahomes, 30 of 39 for 360 passing yards and 5 touchdowns, an incredible performance. And it will surely put him at the top of the quarterback power rankings, wherever those are going to come from this week, because barring Tom Brady or Dak Prescott having a great game tonight, Mahomes had by far the best week one performance of any quarterback, and it's not particularly close. Any initial thoughts on the game, though, from you before we really dive in?
I was honestly just most upset with the fact that there was like 5 minutes left in the third quarter and we just start running the ball instead of just running the score up. I'm always pissed when Andy does that.
Well, actually, so you were able to catch the end of the game, right? Because I wasn't, because CBS was being horrible to me. CBS, thanks to them, I not only missed the first drive of the game and the first Chiefs touchdown of the season, but I also missed basically the entire fourth quarter because they switched it to the Chargers-Raiders game.
That's tough.
Yeah, but you were able to see the end of it, right? So I heard good things about Isaiah Pacheco. I mean, how did he look to you? Because I wasn't able to see him at all.
Yeah, so like in the fourth, especially, we kind of just like put in the second stringers and started running the ball a lot. Pacheco had a couple of like 20-yard runs, 15-yard runs in there. Had a touchdown, his first rushing touchdown of his career. He looked really good.
Yeah, I'm sure there won't be anyone on Twitter saying that he should start over Clyde Edwards-Helaire or anything like that.
Did you tweet that?
No, I didn't, but I know it's probably out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Clyde, though, because honestly, he had a good game. Like, I was surprised. He actually looked pretty good. In fact, if I look at the stats real quick, he had 7 carries for 42 yards, which is good for a 6 yards per carry average. And he also had 2 receiving touchdowns today, 3 receptions for 32 yards as well. And not only did he look good running the ball, but he really wasn't a factor in the receiving game for really the first few years of his career. And that was something that the coaches talked about with him. And everyone that knew about Clyde Edwards-Helaire, they're like, hey, he's a great receiving threat. And we just never really saw it. And today they really got him involved in the red zone. So that was nice to see.
Yeah, I know you've been kind of like down on Clyde, especially probably more than other people. And even I have been down on him at times. But the main thing is like we try and run him outside of the tackles, which isn't his strength. We try and, not use him in the passing game. And today what you saw was we ran him in between the tackles, right in that interior 3, which is our strongest part of the O-line. And we started using him in the passing game, which is 2 things that we haven't used him for. And all of a sudden he looks good. It's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a popular punching bag on this channel for a while, honestly. And you know what? I think you have to consider it was for a reason, because towards the end there, Jerick McKinnon looked like the best running back on this team, especially in the postseason. He brought an explosiveness factor that Clyde simply didn't. I don't know if it was from injury or the fact that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was down and wait before the season last year and he had surgery and everything like that. Maybe he just needed a year to get healthy or something. I don't know. But if this is the kind of Clyde performance we can get, week in and week out, he doesn't have to be a star. He doesn't have to rush for 100 yards. But if we can get this Clyde, I can be happy with that.
I think one of the notes I had down from the game today was just that trio. I think even Daniel Harms tweeted this, like the 1-2-3 punch of Pacheco, McKinnon, and Clyde works super well together. They all like bring a different asset to the table. Yeah. And I liked the combination of just rotating everyone in and out.
Yeah, because like we can admit at this point that the first round pick and the Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a sunk cost. He's never going to live up to that. He's probably not going to be better than Jonathan Taylor. He's probably not going to be better than DeAndre Swift. But again, if he can just do this week in and week out, and not be a disaster like he was at times last year, then I'm fine with that. That's fine as long as he's contributing.
I'm with you on that.
Yeah. So going on top of that with the offense. So I think it's clear that this team does not miss Tyreek Hill whatsoever. And I know a lot of people are going to say that, like, oh, they don't need Tyreek Hill, and a lot of it's going to be made about that, even though it shouldn't be, because, I appreciate what Tyreek did and everything like that. He's not a part of the team anymore. He doesn't need to be brought up. But I know that's going to be a popular talking point. That said, though, I mean, the offense absolutely rolled today. And what I really love about what we saw is everybody got involved. And I mean everybody. Travis Kelce quietly had 121 yards, 8 catches for 121 yards and a touchdown. He's back to being Travis Kelce. No shock there. Juju Smith-Schuster looked good besides the fumble that he had, which you hate to see. 6 receptions for 79 yards. Marquez Valdez Scantling quietly had a solid game. And I'll probably highlight him a little bit more in a minute, but I want to get your thoughts first after this. Like I said, Clyde Edwards-Helaire added the receiving game. Sky Moore, his first catch in the NFL was a 30-yard reception, and he made a few guys miss and looked really good. McCole Hardman, didn't do a lot, but still had a touchdown today. I mean, Patrick Mahomes said in a press conference before the game that he was apologizing to fantasy owners because it was going to be a different guy every week, but that wasn't actually the case. In fact, it was everybody. It wasn't like one guy going off or anything. I mean, you can maybe kind of say Travis Kelce went off because he had a really good game, but what I'm trying to say is that like everyone got involved today, and I think it was a really good thing to see because there were a lot of games last year where the Chiefs struggled to get production outside of the top two of Kelce and Hill, and I think they showed off the depth a little bit today, which I like to see.
Yeah, I thought that he did a great job of distributing the ball all the way around the field. I think he had, 11 different receivers throughout this entire game? Something like that, 11 or 12 receivers.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yeah, 10. No, yeah. There's 9 on the Google stats.
Okay.
9 players having caught a pass today. There could be some missing or they're just not all the way updated yet.
Sure.
But still, I mean, like, so of his 5 TD throws, those were to 4 different people. 2 went to Clyde, 1 went to Kelce, 1 went to our guy Jody, another one to
fucking
McCole.
Fortson.
Yeah, which it's nice to see him back. But I mean, like he got everyone involved.
Yeah, it's actually funny that you mentioned the Jody thing because literally right when we got that flag and it put us at the 1, I was like, "Where's 8-8? Just throw it to 8-8," and then right away Jody Fortson on a crossing route, just throw it up there. Yeah. He's gonna catch it.
Well, and it's funny because I feel like by now, like they've went to Jody so many times in the red zone that like teams kind of know, oh, here comes that 88 guy, like, watch him. And there's still nothing they can really do about it because Jody's frame is just unguardable. And me and you have been on his bandwagon for years now.
Yes.
And the fact that he, like I said, he has an unguardable frame, like just throw him a 50-50 ball and he has it every single time, 90% of the time. And that's what they've started to do. And look at all these touchdowns Jody is getting. Like, Jody is the type of guy where, like, he's probably not going to have more than 20 catches this year, but half of them are going to be touchdowns.
Yeah, I replied to one of your tweets about him today, and I was like, we're going to have to give him, like, a decent bag after this offseason. I don't care. Yeah. Just give it to him. Give him whatever he wants. Like, if he wants a good, like, $5 to $10 million a year for 4 years, give it to him. I don't care.
Yeah, he deserves a raise of some sort because all the guy does is catch touchdowns.
Exactly. He's got, I think his career stat line now is 7 targets for 7 touchdowns for 7 catches and 3 touchdowns. Like, he doesn't drop anything.
Yeah. another thing I'll say about the offense, the offensive line today. Um, I think they need time to settle in once again because I thought Patrick Mahomes got hit way too much today. I don't know if you noticed that, but he was taking way too many shots after he got the ball out. And luckily, the refs kind of helped him out a little bit. He did get a roughing the passer call in today's game, but seeing the wrap around his non-throwing hand, not something you want to see coming out of the first game of the season. And I'll get to injuries in general a little bit later, but I do not like to see Mahomes taking all those shots.
Yeah, that was one of my notes actually. Is I thought the interior played really well, especially when Trey Smith went down. Like you just kind of mentioned about injuries. Algretti played pretty good, but the tackle play was not good. I mean, Orlando Brown, for all the talk we heard about him being in like the best shape of his life this offseason, I did not see him representing this game at all.
No, yeah, he got beat around the edge very quickly a couple times, and my guy, how about those Chiefs, pointed it out on Twitter. There was a couple plays where like he got cooked, and he'll have plays like that. Like I think Orlando Brown is a good left tackle. Obviously, one of the big storylines from this offseason was how the Chiefs couldn't get an extension done with him, and it's because it sounds like he wants too much money. And when the Chiefs go back to negotiations with him, they're going to show him plays like that and go, you want $25 million a year, but look what is happening to our quarterback. And I don't want to make it out to seem like I don't like Orlando Brown or I think he's a bad player because I think he's fine. But obviously the Chiefs weren't willing to give him $25 million a year because he just doesn't deserve that.
Yeah, I think when you see the Chiefs offer a guy like him the biggest contract for a left tackle, or what would have been the biggest contract for a left tackle, making more than they offered Trent Williams, and he turns it down, that kind of irritates me and scares me for this next offseason, because if we go on to win the Super Bowl like I'm predicting us to, then what's he going to do? He's going to be like, hey, I want $30 million a year guaranteed or whatever, some like Tyreek Hill type thing. And that's kind of scary because that's going to cripple this team for the next 6 years. He's, like you said, he's a good left tackle, but he's not an elite left tackle. He's not top 5. He's, maybe in the top 10, at like the 8 or 9 spot, but he's not worth the money that he's going to demand. And I think today kind of showed that he, as much as we heard that, hey, he dropped weight, he's more athletic, he's in the best shape of his life, he's still getting beat on the edge. And in games, later on in the season, in the playoffs against the Bills, where they've got Von Miller coming around the edge, you can't afford to have a tackle that has that as a liability if you're going to pay him that much moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, again, I like Orlando Brown. I want him to be with this franchise, going forward. But I think him playing on the tag this year might be the best thing for the Chiefs because, he talked about how he dropped a little bit of weight. He's ready for this year and all this stuff, and he wants to show, that he's worth this money. Well, if he goes out there for a second straight year and looks like, a fringe top 10, maybe top 10 guy on a good day, he's not going to get top 5 money, but maybe he can show the Chiefs can, point to his film after this year and say, hey, we'll give you this. And we know that maybe you have room to improve, but we're not giving you what Trent Williams got.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
Yeah. I did say that I wanted to talk about Marquez Valdez Scantling.
Sure.
I wanted to highlight his performance before we move on to like the other side of the ball or anything else. I loved that signing because some people kind of complained about it because, yeah, technically the Chiefs paid $10 million a year for what was, a third option. That said, the way the wide receiver market was going, $10 million a year for Marquez Valdez Scantling isn't really that bad of a deal. But I said to Michael that, I kind of see him as the Demarcus Robinson replacement in this offense. I know a lot of people saw him as like the Tyreek Hill replacement, mostly because they signed him right after they traded Tyreek. I always saw him as a Demarcus Robinson replacement and, a third option, a guy that can be reliable, just a quality receiver. And that's exactly what he was today. He didn't catch the ball and run backwards or do anything stupid. There's a couple of good slants where he caught the ball, took a hit, moved the chains, and that's exactly what I want to see from a guy like MVS. Like, I just think he quietly had a good game. He's really solid today. He proved to be a massive upgrade from the Chiefs' depth at receiver that they've had in recent years. And I'm going to shout him out for that because I thought he had a solid game.
I'm excited to see him run more routes on the outside. I thought, a lot of those catches like you talked about were like slants over the middle of the field. I'm excited for him to get those one-on-one matchups on the outside, like on the boundary. Yeah,
absolutely. And we'll definitely see that, I'm sure. But it was nice today because, the routes that they had drawn up for him to run, where it was just like a short little snag or something to move the chains. Like those are plays that we've drawn up for other guys in the past, and they failed to make that play.
Yeah.
So it was very refreshing to see MVS make those plays today.
Yeah, another receiver that I kind of want to mention this about real quick is McCole Hardman. You kind of talked about it earlier. He played okay, didn't have a great game. He had 2 plays that should have or could have been long touchdowns. And I just kind of want to point it out. One of the things, I know you didn't really want to mention it, but one of the things we lose with Tyreek Hill is when Mahomes has a play like that where he overthrows the receiver by like 5 or 10 yards. Like McCole Hardman has that 4.2, 4.3 speed. But even then, a lot of times he's going to fall short by a few yards. So some of those plays where Mahomes just kind of has to let it fly, like it actually kind of drives me crazy. Tyreek Hill would lay out for some of those catches. And McCole, I remember this last year, even in the playoffs when he was, playing good again, just does not lay out for any catches. And it always drives me crazy because I'm like, that's a touchdown, bro. That's a 70-yard gain. Like you got to lay out for those. You got to, be on the same timing and the same page with Mahomes at this point.
Yeah, there was a specific play that where someone tweeted it out, and it's like he was a couple of yards away from the ball, and he just kind of watched it drop in front of him. And it's like, hey, McCole, if you just put in like a little extra effort, like you could have caught that. And I don't know, it's frustrating. It's always been a thing with him. I'm not sure it's going to change. I said to Michael, though, before the season started that I think McCole is what he is. I don't see that changing, but that's fine because the Chiefs created enough wide receiver depth this offseason that they don't need McCole to emerge. Like if he does, great. If he doesn't, fine. Almost kind of like Clyde, the way I feel about him. Like we have enough capable running backs. I get Clyde was a sunk cost. I've complained about it a lot, but if Clyde can just do what he did today, fine. I'm not going to complain about him. I'm not going to hate on the guy, but
yeah, no, definitely. I think even if McCole doesn't progress at all and he kind of stays who he is, I think he's still a guy that we're going to want to keep around just because of that speed element.
He's still a weapon for this team. Like, look what he did in the postseason down the stretch last year. Like a guy that can touch the ball and score at any moment. Like a play that he made last year that people kind of forget about was the play in the Bills AFC divisional round where I think he had the ball behind the line of scrimmage, or maybe it was just like a simple sweep. And you probably remember it, but he probably should have been tackled after like 10 yards, but somehow like made it out of, the scrap, and he went for a touchdown. And it's like, wow. And that play changed the game. And that's a player that I want on my team, is a player that can flip the script at any moment. McCole's going to have his frustrating moments still. I know he is. And I'm probably going to hate myself for saying this now, but like he's still a weapon for this team. And that's why people have suggested in the past, you cut McCole or maybe trade him. No, he's staying here for the length of his rookie contract because that's the smartest thing the Chiefs could do.
Yeah, I think even if he is just, if he does turn out to be just a gadget player, he's still going to be a top 3 player at that in the league. So he's not going anywhere. He's going to stay here. But I do expect him to get somewhere around 1,000 yards this year. He's kind of gone up every year. I think his rookie year had like 400. Then the next year went to 600. Last year he was at like 800. So I think this year he'll take that next jump, especially without Tyreek. So he'll take some of those Z snaps that Tyreek used to have, and he'll definitely get some more yards this year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of him, but I still think he can be a weapon for this team. Do you have any other thoughts on the offense?
Let me open my notes real quick. I think we've covered everything. Yeah, we covered Jody, the running backs, wide receivers, Mahomes. I think I'm good on offense.
Yeah.
We covered the tackles. Yeah.
Yeah, we did. And also Juju Smith-Schuster, real quick, I'll give him a shout out before we move on to the other side of the ball, because again, I know he had the fumble, but besides that, he looked really good. And he made a lot of tough catches, and he's the receiver that we've needed for so many years. Mahomes and him clearly have developed a good connection already, and yes. I'm excited to see what he does for the rest of the season.
I agree. I'm excited. He did have that fumble. He's got to get 2 hands on the ball in that situation, but moving forward, I don't think he makes that mistake again.
Well, yeah, and the other thing too is you want him to protect the ball a little bit better, but it was also a great defensive play. The Cardinals defender, he put his hand in the fist and he made it his job to punch that ball out, and sometimes that just happens.
Yeah.
But the defense. So usually Spags defenses are very they're not very good to start the year. That's what we've seen pretty much every year since he's been the defensive coordinator. His defenses start out really slow. I don't know if it was because the Cardinals were a bad opponent or anything like that. They were missing a lot of guys. They don't have DeAndre Hopkins. They didn't have Rondale Moore, but the defense looked good. I thought, they looked good. There were a couple things that I didn't like. I thought some of the defensive formation Spags had us in were a little bit head scratching. They didn't really cost us that much or anything. Like, for example, there was like one play. I don't know if you remember it or you saw it. He had Nick Bolton lined up at cornerback. And I was like, what is this? And luckily, Kyler Murray didn't look that way on that play. But there was a couple weird things I saw today. And then there was another one where he had Noddy dropping back in coverage.
Yep.
And, and he had, I think there was one, you might have tweeted it out. Karlaftis was dropped back.
Yep.
Like 10 yards. And go ahead.
Yeah, it's just classic Spags. You'll get them on like 3rd and 9 or 3rd and 11 or something like that. And then you just see a defensive end 10 yards in coverage. And you're like, what are we doing? Like, what are we doing? We have Karlaftis on a tight end, like 10 yards down the field. And it's just, I don't understand it.
Yeah. Also, by the way, before we continue, guys, I know we actually have a decent crowd, and I see your comments too. I will get to them, but for those of you like watching right now, if you have questions or comments, anything like that, put them in now, and we'll answer them before we wrap up the show because I do enjoy reading your guys' comments and stuff like that. But let's start with the defensive line. I wrote for Arrowhead Addict before this game. That this game would be a good first test for the new look pass rush. And I think for the most part, this pass rush passed the eye test in game one. Karlaftis, I saw him get a few pressures today. He didn't have any sacks, but he looked very good for his first game. Chris Jones, by the way, the guy is just a monster. He is a game wrecker. The Cardinals had trouble containing him. He was able to bat down passes, create pressure, and it's ridiculous that people this offseason suggested that Chris Jones could be traded or gotten rid of or that he's overrated. Because I know people were firing out hot takes after the AFC Championship game saying Chris Jones needs to go. And there's this whole thing about him not having any playoff sacks. And it drove me insane because they're not realizing the impact that Jones still has on the game. And I think Chris Jones definitely reminded people today that, he is still a force to be reckoned with. And the idea of getting rid of him is absolutely ridiculous. Newcomer Carlos Dunlap had 3 tackles and a sack today. I know someone said something about Frank Clark in the comments, and I'll get to that comment later. Frank Clark, he looked – I will say this about Frank Clark. There were a couple players where I saw him get bullied off the line of scrimmage. I know he lost weight this offseason, and maybe that had something to do with it. He's still learning how to play with his new body. But he did look a little bit quicker. I'll give him that. I think shedding weight, makes him a little bit more explosive because I thought he was pretty slow getting off the ball a lot. Really throughout his time as a Chief, he's been very slow to me. He's looked very slow. Today, he looked a little bit quicker. I will give him that. And, I want Frank Clark to do good this year because if we can get anything from him, it's a plus. I think the Chiefs built the defensive line in a way this offseason that – they're not asking Frank Clark to do what maybe they've been asking him to do the past couple of years because I think they realize that Frank Clark, you can't depend on him. We've done that song and dance for the past couple of years. Frank Clark hasn't delivered. So, I don't know. Those are my thoughts. But overall, the defensive line, I know the Cardinals aren't a great offensive line. They were missing Rodney Hudson today, who's one of the best centers in the NFL. But yeah, I thought the pass rush looked good. And this is a step in the right direction because as I told Michael – last year, this team couldn't even get pressure against bad competition. At least they were getting pressure today against, mid-level competition.
Yeah, that was actually my first note that I had down for this game was the pass rush. Like, if you remember back to last year in week 1, Chris Jones had like 2 or 3 sacks when he was playing defensive end and looked phenomenal. But besides him, there was no pressure. This game, like right away, I noticed like Mike Dana, we had him inside next to Chris Jones. He was doing some work there. You mentioned it. Carlos Dunlap had a sack and a couple tackles. He was getting pressure. Karlaftis had some batted passes. So did Chris Jones. Both of them had some pressures and QB hits. Like, it was kind of coming from everywhere today, and that's very promising, especially with it being week 1. Like, Karlaftis is only going to get better from here. Mike Dana's kind of taking a step up every year. I don't know if they're going to plan on putting him inside more, but if he plays like he did today, I'm fine with that on the passing downs.
Yeah.
I thought pass rush was great today. Like all things considered, especially like compared to years past. Like you kind of mentioned it, like the whole Frank Clark thing. Like I didn't think he had his best game today. Obviously, there was even that
Yeah.
one play where he and I think Chris Jones ran a stunt move, and then Clark ran free right up the middle and should have had a sack on Kyler Murray and just kind of tripped over himself and
Yeah,
fell.
was that the one that he fell down? Yeah,
Yep.
I was like, Frank, come on. Like, that was the most Frank Clark thing to ever happen because not only did he fall down, but when he fell down, he blocked L'Jarius Sneed, who was in on a blitz, from getting the sack as well. Again, the most Frank Clark thing that could ever happen.
Yeah, it's just besides that play in particular, I thought the pass rush was fine, especially with losing Melvin Ingram, who kind of gave us that spark last year. I thought it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really love the Dunlap signing. I didn't get a chance to like really talk about it or like when it happened or anything because I wasn't around or wasn't able to make videos at the time. And I think he's an upgrade over Melvin Ingram. He certainly showed that today. He was very involved, 3 tackles and a sack. And Dunlap is also a guy who has had success because he played the last couple years for Seattle. He's always had success against Arizona. So the fact that he was able to have success yet again today versus Arizona, I think just kind of confirms that, hey, he's still got juice left in the tank. Like he's good to go for the season. He's going to be a guy that is a factor for this pass rush.
Yeah, and I think, having a guy like him and Karlaftis who are a little bit, bigger bodied than Frank Clark is also going to help for maybe run defense. Like we're talking about pass rush here, but I think run
Yeah.
defense is also going to improve with those guys setting the edge rather to Frank Clark, who didn't necessarily look like he had the most motivation last season in run defense, as you've pointed out a few times on your Twitter. So I think, I think the signing is great.
Well, there is an effort issue with Frank Clark for me. There was a play I tweeted and it went somewhat viral on Chiefs Twitter, and it was a play from the AFC Championship game, or not AFC Championship, AFC Divisional round against the Bills, and it was the Josh Allen 2-point conversion, and Frank Clark is chasing Allen to the sideline and then just kind of stops and is walking when he has a chance to get in his face and maybe affect the throw. And instead, Frank Clark is just walking over to the sideline. Josh Allen has, a wide open passing lane that they were able to convert on the 2-point conversion. And it's like, seriously, like that effort will not fly.
Yeah, and I think, one of the unfortunate things with Frank Clark is, he does have that illness that he deals with. Like we saw it the other day, he missed practice, and maybe, over the years, that's just taken a toll on him. He did like get healthier this offseason and he's still dealing with that. Still isn't, looking like, 2019 Frank Clark or 2018. So yeah, I think it's unfortunate at this point. I'm just kind of acceptive of he is what he is. He's not gonna be an elite player. Like I know people are saying he's gonna bounce back this year, and if he does, great. But I'm not predicting that to happen. He did take a pay cut. I think this is his last year, so I'm just ready to move on. I think I'm just hoping that he can help us out while he's still here.
Yeah, I mean, whatever he gives you is just gravy on top. So yeah, it is what it is. Linebacker play. So Nick Bolton, for his first game as the green dot, I thought did really well. He was flying all over. He was the Chiefs' leading tackler today. He had 9 tackles and an assist, 10 total tackles. I thought he did a really good job leading the defense out there. You could see him being very vocal. And Nick Bolton, like when he was at Missouri in his first year in the NFL, he was a leader, but he wasn't like a rah-rah, get in your kind of face guy. Like he was a lead by example. He just shut up and he came to work and did his thing. Today, it very much looked like he was taking on more of a leadership role. I don't know if you noticed that at all, but I definitely noticed it. He very much looked like the new green dot, what you would expect out of one. And I thought Willie Gay played very well today as well. He had quite an injury scare. He dropped onto the field like right before a commercial break. Looks like it was just a cramp though, because he was on for the very next play after the commercial break. So looks like he's fine. I didn't really see it. The Chiefs didn't play more than 2 linebackers very much today. So I didn't see very much of like Elijah Lee or Leo Chenal or anything like that. So maybe we'll see more of them depending on future matchups. But what did you think of the linebacker play today?
Yeah, I didn't necessarily notice like the leadership thing with Bolton. I wasn't really paying attention to that. I did
Yeah.
see him flying around though. I thought, for him being mostly a three down linebacker, that was kind of, something that was a question mark, and I thought he did good for his first game, being in that role. Willie Gay, was Willie Gay. He's flying around making plays. He's also missing some tackles here and there. That was one
Yeah.
thing I had hoped that he would, maybe clean up going into this year. And it is just the first week, so hopefully he
Yeah, I was
can
actually going to
fix
say
that.
that, not to cut you off, but like there was a couple. So for compared to last year when the Chiefs just like couldn't tackle at all, like this was a lot better. They still missed a few tackles today, and it's like, well, it is only the first game of the year. These guys don't really hit in training camp very much, so I think that'll get better.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, like you kind of mentioned it, the play that he got injured on, I actually thought he should have, had an interception on that play, and he kind of, grabbed at his knee, and then he was, getting back in the formation, and then it looked like he just tried to like run to the sideline and just kind of fell over because that knee was still bugging him. But yeah, it was kind of a scare. And I know you mentioned it earlier that we were going to save it for later. Like the injuries today, man, they were just everywhere. It seemed like every other play we had a
Yeah.
player going down with something.
Yeah, no, I'm going to hit on them because I have another point to make about them towards
Sure.
the end. But yeah, there was a lot of them, and it was like, and it's not like any of them were like very bad, like what happened in the Steelers game today to TJ Watt, where it's like, oh man, he's out for the year. Like we didn't have any like really bad injuries, but it's like they were just like annoying injuries where it's like really another guy is down for like whatever reason. So yeah, that sucked. Secondary though, I was impressed with what we saw. Besides the fact that, hold up, let me look up this guy's name. This guy for the Cardinals. I think his name was like Greg Dortch or something like
Yeah,
that.
like
He
83, I
had
think.
Yeah, he had like 3 catches for the Cardinals last year, and somehow today he was able to get 7 catches for 63 yards, and he actually looked pretty good. I don't really like that. That said, though, I think they tightened up as the game went on. Your guy Juan Thornhill also looked really good today. There was one play where he flew out of nowhere to break up the pass. I thought Justin Reed looked really good. The safeties in general, the cornerbacks, including Trent McDuffie, who went down with an injury today, and we'll talk about that later. But Trent McDuffie looked really good today. You don't really hear much from him, which was kind of the case in preseason too. But that's a good thing because it means like he's not allowing his man to get open and make the catch. Like people just I mean, I know it's one game and you only have preseason to go off of before that, but no one's throwing at Trent McDuffie. And the rest of the cornerbacks I thought played a decent game as well, including newcomers Joshua Williams and Jalen Watson. Jalen Watson did get kind of burned by Marquise Brown on one of the Cardinals' later touchdowns later in the game, or maybe it was a 2-point conversion that I'm thinking of.
It was a touchdown.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, like, that's going to happen. Like, the guy's a rookie, and also Marquise Brown, he is a burner. So, I'm overall happy with the secondary play, and I thought most of the new guys, they looked pretty good. So,
Yeah, that was another thing I had down was specifically the safeties, not necessarily corners. But Justin Reed,
yeah.
I thought was amazing today. I mean, obviously he was also a backup kicker today.
Yeah, he booted that extra point through. He missed the other one, which, whatever. But the first one was beautiful.
I even tweeted this too. I was like, I think maybe we should have him do every single kickoff because that just gives you an advantage. Like no one's going to return a kick if you've got a safety back there every time, like that
Yeah,
extra
because
defender.
because a lot of times the last man's a kicker, and it's like, well, the kicker's not making a tackle. Justin Reed could definitely make a tackle, worst case scenario.
Yeah. I think in pass coverage, like I didn't see too much from him. Like I don't think he had any PBUs. I could be wrong on that. But he did have a few key tackles, just kind of flying down, blowing up some plays. Juan Thornhill, you kind of talked about, was flying around looking like his rookie self, which finally, because we've been waiting for that, we kind of saw it also in week 1 of last year with Tyrann Mathieu out, where, Juan Thornhill kind of saved that game and was kind of, showing flashes of his former self flying around a bit.
Yeah.
And then he was just like weirdly in the doghouse after that game for like 6 weeks, which we're not going to get into that because
For Dan Sorensen.
I wasn't going to mention his name, but I mean, yeah, Dan Sorensen finally gone, so we don't have to worry about that. I think that was honestly the biggest sigh of relief this game is like, you kind of mentioned it. We kind of let them come back a little bit in garbage time. We were just running the clock out and they were kind of coming back on us. But at that point, like as long as it's not early in the game, Dan Sorensen blowing a coverage like 5 times on a freaking tight end. Like I'm just so happy that he's gone because you kind of mentioned it like last year, like the start of the season, tackling was a huge issue. Like week 1, Dan Sorensen had like 9 missed tackles. Everyone else in the league had like the next closest was like 3 missed tackles. Like,
Well, by like every metric, he was one of the worst safeties in the league. Like
yeah,
he shouldn't have been playing at all, and he was getting 90% of the snaps in some of the games.
that was, and like I said, that was just the biggest takeaway for me was the safety play was noticeably better this year from the start of last year. Brian Cook, I don't think he played too much. I did see him in there a few times. It looked like we had him playing the robber role a bit, which intrigues me because we would kind of disguise him as a deep safety, and then right before the snap he'd drop up into kind of that cover one robber role that Tyrann Mathieu used to play. So I'm excited to see
Yeah,
that. I saw him have a tackle or two today as well. I'm excited for his future. I think the safeties look great. You kind of talked about the corners, like Jalen Watson. For a 7th-round rookie in his first game to be, just a step behind Marquise Brown, who's like a 4.2 guy.
yeah.
Like, yeah, you never want to see your guys get beat like that. But for him being a 7th-rounder and showing, as good of a performance as you could against Marquise Brown being in that position. Like I thought he did a good job today. Mcduffie, like you said, we haven't heard anything from him, but that's a good thing if you're a corner. If you're not being targeted, that
Yeah.
means you're doing a good job. You're covering your guy. L'Jarius Sneed, we can talk about him because L'Jarius Sneed was just doing L'Jarius Sneed things again. Not really being targeted when he's making tackles, he's getting sacks. Like he's just a playmaker. I'm excited for the secondary.
Yeah, he had a really nice play about midway through the game where one of the Cardinals receivers caught it right before the first down marker, and he flew in and hit the guy and knocked the ball out to the point where the refs eventually went back and they called it incomplete because L'Jarius Sneed was able to knock it out. And I think that led to the Cardinals punting the play after. Otherwise, it would have been a 3rd and 1, which would have been a lot easier for them to convert. So Sneed looked really good. Secondary in general, I thought it looked pretty good. And yeah, like Jalen Watson, the fact that he's pushing for playing time as a 7th-round rookie is a very positive sign for this defense. Same thing with Joshua Williams. Like that, and they don't look embarrassingly bad. And like the Chiefs, and I said this to Michael as well, it's like the Chiefs last year, they had too many guys where it's like if you give them any sort of real playing time, like they're embarrassingly bad. I don't see that from a lot of these guys. Again, we're only 1 game in, but like Jalen Watson, he can go out there and put in quality snaps. We had guys like Dan Sorensen and Mike Hughes that just don't belong on an NFL football field at this stage of their careers. And we've created depth and brought in quality replacements. And also you mentioned something interesting about Brian Cook, how they kind of had them in the robber role. And I think that's exactly what the Chiefs have wanted to do for a long time now. They just didn't have the personnel for it. But Brian Cook, he definitely has the skill set to do that because and that's what I like about all the Chiefs safeties, because you even talked about Juan Thornhill being able to play the Tyrann Mathieu role in week 1 last year. And then after that, he kind of disappeared. But I tell people he looked really good playing the honey badger role, as we called it when he was here. And, all these safeties seem to have a lot of versatility. And Brian Cook, especially, like you said, because he has the athleticism. Not only can he come up and hit you and play in the box, but he's got plenty of speed and range, to go with it.
Yeah, I'm just excited for the versatility. I do think Juan Thornhill has a real shot at being an All-Pro this year. I think if he's confident in himself and his abilities, then I'm all for it, man. I'm excited to see some play, some like All-Pro, Pro Bowl play in the secondary, because we did not see that last year. So I'm excited. Like you kind of talked about it. Mike Hughes was so bad last year in the Bills game, allowing like 4 touchdowns. Like I don't think we have a corner on this roster right now that's going to push for playing time, that's going to give you that sort of liability. So I'm excited for this team.
Yeah, I'm just we in week 1 last year, like at first, okay, so like the first stretch of the season, rather, the defense was so bad, and we knew from like the first snap, it's like in that Browns game when we all saw it, it's like, hey, is the Chiefs defense this bad? Or like, is it just week 1 and the Browns are a good opponent? And then we saw what they did against the Ravens and the Chargers, and we're like, oh no, this defense is bad.
Yeah.
And we didn't, I didn't see that today. Like I saw a defense that went out there and they can hit and run. And it's night and day difference from last year.
I'm excited. I can't wait for Thursday. I think it's going to be a great game. I don't think Mahomes is going to take any step back. I'm actually predicting him to be the offensive player of the year, not the MVP. But I think he's going to be right up there, and I'm so excited, man. Like all the talk this offseason about like, oh, the Chiefs aren't going to be the same. The Chiefs, look terrible in the Bengals game, which we can get into that a different day.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited for us to just prove everyone wrong this year. It feels good.
Yeah, and I've been telling people that because it's like it feels like the Chiefs are kind of forgotten about because a lot of these teams added star power and they added big names, and the Chiefs kind of, stayed back a little bit. And they traded Tyreek Hill, and it's like, whoa, the Chiefs are taking a step back, and it's like, well, actually, they're not because actually they've been a roster the past several years where they've been very top heavy and they didn't have a lot of depth. Well, they went out and they completely fixed the depth. And I think that made them a better overall team. And you saw that in this game too. They had no shortage of options to go to in the passing game. The defense looked, like I said, night and day better than last year at this time. So people are sleeping on the Chiefs. And I know sometimes when we talk about the Chiefs being overlooked by the national media, sometimes that gets overblown and it's not really that bad. But like it kind of does feel like a lot of people are picking a different AFC West team to win the division this year, and the Bills are like the hot new team, and it's a Super Bowl or bust year for them. And it's like, guys, the Chiefs are still here.
I think the biggest thing from last year is, the whole like two-eye safety thing, right? The whole taking away Tyreek Hill from scoring every single play. That was already kind of teaching Mahomes to spread the ball around more. But now you lose Tyreek Hill after Mahomes has had this year to kind of adjust to the way defenses are playing him. And now you give him guys like MVS, like Juju. You still have Hardman. You add Sky Moore. You've got Jody Fortson back, Travis Kelce, of course. You got this 1-2-3 punch at the running back position. Like, I'm just so excited. I think as long as the tackles and the offensive line can hold up, we're going to be a great team this year. And I'm just excited for Thursday Night Football, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to kind of talk about that game a little bit, and then we will hit some of these comments and questions, and we'll wrap it up. But injuries. So some of the notable injuries from today: cornerback Trent McDuffie, guard Trey Smith, and then also Justin Watson got hurt towards the end of the game. I didn't see that, but they called it a chest injury, which I hope he's okay because a lot of times when they say chest injury, it's a precursor to torn pec. So I really hope Justin Watson didn't tear his pec. That would be unfortunate. As far as Trey Smith and Trent McDuffie, Trey Smith, it sounds like he just rolled his ankle and he'll be okay because he tried to go back in the game later on. Trent McDuffie, however, they called it a hamstring strain. Hamstrings, they're not – it's good that it wasn't like a major injury like an Achilles or anything like that. But hamstrings can still be tricky. And if the Chiefs don't have Trent McDuffie, because it's a quick turnaround, they play the Chargers on Thursday night. That'll be a little bit concerning. We'll see, though, because that loss could be offset by Keenan Allen because it looks like he also had a hamstring injury today for the Chargers. If he can't go for the Chargers, that's a big loss for them. At the end of the day, though, McDuffie getting hurt, that sucks because he was playing really well today.
Yeah, I think, the injuries, you kind of mentioned it earlier, like they weren't anything super like major or crazy. It's all kind of minor things.
Yeah.
So I think, while there was a lot, even Mahomes had that scare with like his wrist at the beginning of the game, like the first drive, like it seems to all be minor stuff that's going to be fixed soon. And that's all you can ask for with this tough schedule we got for this first half of the season. So.
Yeah, absolutely. The injuries weren't terrible, but they're very annoying. And they're injuries where it's like, yeah, they're minor, but they're enough to maybe knock a guy out for a game or two. And given we have this quick turnaround where we play the Chargers, it's like, hopefully they can get ready before that next game because we need all these guys. And it's important that we win this game because Chargers are tough this year and the division is tough this year. And you don't want to lose ground early like you did last year when the Chiefs lost that first game to the Chargers. And, the Chargers, it was a dogfight for the top spot in the division all the way up until like week 12, week 13. Then the Chargers finally collapsed and the Chiefs were able to take it. But I want the Chiefs to not have to worry so early about making up so much ground like they did last year. So this Chargers game is going to be important. From what I saw today, though, I wasn't like overwhelmed by the way the Chargers or the Raiders played today. Derek Carr threw like 3 interceptions. Justin Herbert also might be a hot take to some people. I think Justin Herbert isn't that good in close games because the Raiders had a chance at the end there. and I think Herbert threw an interception to Nate Hobbs. I could be incorrect on that, or I know they turned the ball over, I'm pretty sure, to the Raiders. And I know everyone's talking about Justin Herbert and some of the plays he made today. They were great and all. Yeah, I'm taking Mahomes in that matchup, though, and I'm taking the Chiefs.
I'm with you. I think it's going to be kind of like a, average scoring game, like a 21-28 type thing. I don't think many field goals. I think it's just going to be kind of a shootout for a bit and then kind of slow down towards the second half. So,
yeah, I mean, the Cardinals weren't a great opponent. The Chargers are going to be a little bit tougher. Justin Herbert is a hotter quarterback than Kyler Murray right now, and I think this young defense is going to get tested. But, they have a much higher ceiling this year, and I think they'll be able to make some plays that will ultimately win the Chiefs the game.
I'm with you there.
Yeah, not to preview too much because we'll do more preview and stuff later this week. But let's get to some comments and questions. Eric, he says, everyone not named McCole Hardman and Frank Clark had a great game. Yeah, that's somewhat true. You didn't have to be so harsh about it, though, Eric, but I know that's your thing. Marlon says, Josh looks drippy. Not really. I'm not wearing much, but appreciate it. Weston says, can you give praise to Bolton, please? Absolutely. Bolton played amazing today. And like I said, in Hydra, if you get a chance to go back and watch the game, look for that leadership aspect that I said about Bolton earlier, because I saw him taking a lot more of a vocal leader type of role, and it really made me happy. But
I'll take a look when I see the all 22.
Yeah, because I think he did a lot. He was doing a great job directing the defense out there, and he looked a lot better than Hitchens the way he played too. But Clark had some pressures, but he should have played better. McCole, I don't know how he missed that bomb. Yeah, we kind of talked about that, and same thing with Clark. Like, yeah, he looked a little bit quicker, but like some of the plays you'd like to see him finish out a little bit better. And like I said, there was a couple times where it looked like he got moved off the line rather easily, but we'll see. We'll see what Frank Clark does this year. Weston says, TBH, Karlaftis is a beast. Josh, I know you wanted the Chiefs to stay away from him, but man, he is good. Yeah, so I'm glad you remembered that. I did make a video before the draft when it happened. It was like 4 players to stay away from. And I put George Karlaftis on the list in the first round, players that I wanted the Chiefs to stay away from in round 1. And mainly that was because of the fact that I didn't like his lack of bend. And, he was a power rusher, and I wanted the Chiefs to add maybe a little bit more of a speed rusher. But obviously Spag's MO is power rushers, guys that are big and strong and stuff like that. And that was Karlaftis. Karlaftis was definitely a Spag's guy, and I wasn't surprised they took him. But yeah, he has made me eat my words a little bit because he's looked fantastic so far. I was just concerned about him maybe being a high floor, low ceiling type of player, and a guy that, he wins with power, which is good, but he was a little bit undersized as well. And I was like, I don't know if this guy can win in the NFL, being a power rusher, having a little bit of a smaller frame and having to go up against, some of the best tackles in the league week in and week out. Like, I wasn't sure if he'd be able to have success, but so far he's looked really good. I don't know if you have any additional thoughts on that.
I think you would have said like everything I was about to say, so probably not.
Yeah, I was mostly concerned about his lack of bend as well. I didn't like that. I thought the Chiefs needed to get a little bit bendier and a little more athletic at the defensive end position. But Karlaftis so far has looked good, so that's a good thing. Eric says, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want us to take him either, but I kind of just had a feeling we would because he's Spags guy. So as much as, I thought we were going to trade up for Jermaine Johnson, or we were going to, go with a different speed element. We obviously didn't. But, he's also kind of making me eat my words a bit too. He's looked good so far, so I can't really complain.
Yeah, I agree. Eric says McCole too mentally soft to be a reliable wide receiver, too scared to take hits and give any sort of effort with the ball in the air. Officially sick of this guy. Eric, I know how you feel about McCole. We feel the same way. He's a frustrating player, but like when he has his big plays, like sometimes it makes you forget a little bit. But like I said, he's still a weapon for this team. He is what he is, in my opinion. He's a frustrating player, and he always is going to be. But because of the explosiveness he brings, you'd like to have him on the team.
I agree.
Yeah. Marlon says thoughts on Mcduffie. Kind of touched on that too. Like nothing super flashy, but he's sticking with his guy. It looks really good in coverage. Nate Taylor even pointed it out. Like, hey, you're not going to hear his name a lot on the broadcast, but like he played really good today all the way up until he went down, and I hope he continues that. And I hope he's healthy enough to go against the Chargers because that would be a huge boost, but we'll see. Weston says, TBH, this is the first time our defense was organized. No Sorensen. Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a really good point too. Like I said, Spags defenses usually early on are like very bad. And a lot of it is because Spags runs one of the more complicated defenses in the league. And there were so many games last year early on where I remember in week 4, week 5, week 6 even, our guys didn't even know where to be lined up before the ball was snapped. And there was so much running around, and it's like, and I know a lot of the excuses for some of these other guys we saw on the field, and we wanted Juan Thornhill to play, and we wanted Dorian O'Daniel to get a shot or whatever. The excuse always was, well, Sorensen and Hitchens, those guys know where to be. And it's like, but they don't know where to be because no one knows where to line up before the ball is snapped. And the Chiefs had one of the worst red zone defenses in the league since Spags became the defensive coordinator, because every single time, like, there's so many games where it's like guys are wide open when the Chiefs opponent is in the red zone because like guys just didn't know where to line up. They didn't know what their assignment was. That looked like it got cleaned up today, and hopefully that's the case going forward.
I think that goes back to what you were saying about that leadership role from Nick Bolton, that he's really stepped into. Spagnuolo even talked about it the other day in his press conference. There was some calls in practice where he was trying to, make it easier on Nick and simple down, the defensive calls. And Nick just went to him and he's like, no, I'm good. Like, I got it. I know what I'm doing. I know like where everyone needs to be. So I think that's a big part of it is, when you move on from guys like Ben Neiman and Anthony Hitchens, who were the Mikes last year, the Mike 1 and Mike 2, you move on from guys like that and you have someone like Nick Bolton, who's always been in that spot, that's always, been the leader back, in his college days to now in the NFL. I think that's a big, just a big positive for the defense. And I think you saw that today.
Yeah, he's always been a really smart player, and I always knew that was going to make up for his lack of athleticism in the NFL because he's really smart. And I remember his last year with Missouri, it was the 2020 COVID year. He hurt his ankle, and he wasn't out. He still played, but he clearly was not the same because he was running on one leg, essentially. And the Missouri defense gave up like 150 points in the last 3 weeks combined, and it was because Nick Bolton simply was not the same guy, and he wasn't able to do what he needed to help that defense out because he was so much the leader of that Missouri defense, and his leadership is totally understated. And I remember he got ejected from the Arkansas game, and it still pisses me off, on a BS targeting call. We were still able to win without him, but it was clear after he got ejected from the game, like the defense just wasn't the same. So that's Nick Bolton for you.
Yeah.
Doug NKS with a super chat. Thank you very much. He says, just wanted to welcome you back from basic military training, my friend. I know you have been back. Yes, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be back and making videos. It feels good to be back, and I'm glad. And that's why I kind of went to basic training during a time where there was nothing going on. It was like a dead period in the off season, and there was no games going on. So I was gone at like the perfect time, and now I'm back at the perfect time and able to watch the games and make videos. So it's great. Eric says Joshua Williams was embarrassingly bad in the preseason, though. I will agree with you there. I saw a lot of hype about him in training camp, and then he seemed to lose the ball in the air a lot and got burnt a couple times, but he didn't stick out like a sore thumb today. He did his job. There was one missed tackle that he had, but there was a lot of guys on the Chiefs that maybe missed the initial tackle today, and that'll get cleaned up.
Yeah, I do think you have a point, though, with him being bad in the preseason. You saw right away once McDuffie went down, it was Jalen Watson that they went to replace him. It wasn't Josh Williams, even though Williams was taken in like the 4th round. So, yeah, I think, he's definitely got some work to do. That was kind of, what people were saying when he was drafted, though. So it's not super surprising.
Yeah. No, I agree. I mean, in both him and Watson, they were day 3 guys. So the fact, again, that they're pushing for playing time at all is a huge positive.
Yeah.
I personally would have liked to see the Chiefs maybe grab one more veteran because they do have a lot of young guys that they're relying on, which is why if Mcduffie is out for this next game, it's going to hurt their depth. But I think they have guys that they like that we can absorb the loss. And you know what? They're not Mike Hughes. Mike Hughes isn't on the team anymore. So you know what? I'm happy.
That's all he can ask for.
Yeah, exactly. Doug NKS also says, feel like we have a real solid defense and have so much ceiling to go. Number 15 has a defense now. Yeah, I mean, you pretty much said it. Patrick Mahomes, I think the highest rated defense he has ever had was like number 17, and that was the year we won the Super Bowl in 2019. And even then, they weren't fantastic. Feels like this defense has a much higher ceiling than that 2019 team. So
I agree. You add, young guys and you add speed, and it just raises the ceiling by that much and raises the floor as well. So yeah, I'm excited. I think if you have guys like Justin Reed step up, if you have Juan Thornhill step up, that's really gonna help out the rest of the defense. Because knowing that you've got that back end covered, especially when we play like the Bills or the Bengals, here in a bit, that's really gonna help us out the most, I think, for defense. Because like every team's always going to have those couple yard gains. Like there's nothing you can really do to stop. But if we can prevent them beating us deep, which I think we have the chance to do this year, because even if knock on wood, we lose Thornhill or Reed to injury or something, we still have Brian Cook that can step up, and Deion Bush looked great in the preseason as well. So I think we got a lot of speed, especially on that back end, and that's just something we have not had in recent years.
Yeah, like last year, like there's just way too many broken plays, cheap touchdowns that the other team was able to take advantage of. And if you want to be a Super Bowl contender and a Super Bowl, caliber defense, like that kind of stuff can't happen. Like in the Bills game last year in the divisional round, like Gabe Davis has become overrated, I feel like, from that one game he had against us, when in reality he's an average receiver. And it's like, he was going up against Armani Watts, and I like Armani Watts, and I know you and I both did, but like he's going up against like Armani Watts and Mike Hughes. Like, come on. Like Mike Hughes fell down and Gabe Davis was wide open because of it. That was nothing Gabe Davis did. That was the Chiefs defense being absolutely terrible. And then in the Bengals game too, P. Ryan had like a 40-yard touchdown out of nowhere because like no one on the defense was like fast enough or putting in enough effort to tackle him. And it's like, are we really just going to let the Bengals walk in the end zone like that? Just too many times, too late in the year. This defense just did not have the personnel. They didn't have what it took. And I think this defense is they built it a lot better than it's been in a while.
I think it's going to keep getting better as the season goes on too. I think, the more experience these younger guys get, the better we're going to be. So, we might start off allowing 20 points a game or whatever, like we did this game for the first couple of weeks. But later on in the year, I think we can, be one of the top 10 defenses if we reach our potential. So,
yeah, definitely. I will go ahead and look at this comment, and then I'll probably wrap it up. Josh, thank God Sorensen interception touchdown he had last year didn't get Spags to keep him. Honestly, I think if it was up to Spags, he would have kept him. I don't know how you feel about this, but I talked about it with Michael, and I feel like Veach maybe took a little bit more of a charge of the personnel than he has the past couple years, because I mentioned how Veach watches the games like we do. He's not an idiot. Like, he knows what good and bad football looks like. Surely he wasn't sitting up in the press box during the games and thinking, you know what, we need to give Sorensen another 1-year deal. I think a lot of times Andy Reid and the coaches made the shopping list and Brett Veach did the shopping. And that's why we saw guys kind of stick around way longer than they should have, including Sorensen, because that was Spags' guy. That was Andy's guy. They loved Sorensen.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think, always Veach was going to have, the best interest of the roster in mind, though. So I feel like even in years past, if he had a choice between re-signing Sorensen or re-signing, I don't know, just a random, younger, more athletic safety, he was always going to look at the better player. We just didn't really have those options in years past, and this year it worked out perfectly, kind of. We had all the picks from the Tyreek Hill trade. We didn't want Tyron back, so we were able to bring in, Justin Reed. Thornhill has really stepped up this year, it sounds like, in terms of like leadership, but also, he's just 100%, like he used to be back in his rookie year, which he wasn't fully 100% last year. So I feel like this year really enabled him to have a position to just build a better secondary, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Other than that, though, I mean, I got nothing. I think we covered everything, unless you had any final thoughts.
I think for a week 1 blowout, I feel like we had a lot to talk about. So, yeah, I'm good.
Yeah, no, I predicted it. I wasn't shocked at all by the result. I actually have a relative on my mom's side that's a huge Cardinals fan, and last year when the Cardinals started like 7-0 or whatever it was, he was like, "Hey, can I come on your podcast to talk about the Cardinals?" And then they collapsed in the playoffs, and I was like, "You can come on the podcast now." And then I hit him up today, and I was like, "Still interested in coming on the podcast?" He was like, "I turned the game off." I just had to laugh at that because he's a huge Cardinals fan, and I was talking trash all day because I was for sure this was going to be a blowout, and I was right. I mean, it was not even close. But yeah, that's all I got, guys. So for those of you watching, I appreciate you coming on and joining us. I know there's a lot of other Chiefs channels that are streaming RGR football. My good friends over there, I know they always do post-game stuff. How About Those Chiefs has something. There's a lot of competition nowadays for these Chiefs post-game shows. But I appreciate everyone that came and chose us and is watching. But make sure you like, share, and subscribe so more Chiefs fans can find this. And also, before we go, Hydra, where can the fans find you? And also, I know you were talking about maybe doing your own content. Is that going to happen? I would love to see it, honestly. I think you'd be pretty good.
We'll see, man. I used to always make videos back in the day. And I've always kind of said, like, oh, I'm going to start, going back to making content because I miss it. And it never ends up happening. So we'll see if it happens or not. I'll definitely be on here at least once a week. So you'll be able to find me here. Also, my Twitter, just @ in front of my name that's on the screen right now. So it should be easy for you to find. And then, yeah, if you want to go to youtube.com/Hydra, that'll be my YouTube channel as well. If I do start uploading there. So,
all right, sounds good. I actually did link your Twitter in the description already, so the people should be able to find you. But yeah, that's all we got. If you think you're going to be able to go Thursday night?
I'll have to see, but I'll let you know for sure.
All right, sounds good. Otherwise, we will see you guys in the next one. Once again, thanks for watching. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe. And go Chiefs.